Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of Lunenburg Town Council. I'd like to start by acknowledging that this meeting takes place in the traditional and ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. Number 3 on the agenda is additions, deletions to the agenda. There isn't any, but I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Jamie Deans. He's sitting in the back of the room. He's our newest town employee. He's our new communication and event coordinator. So Jamie, welcome. Nice to have another Jamie on staff. So I can say it was that Jamie when I get in trouble. So that's great. So we'll move on to number 4, approval of the agenda. Recommendation that Committee of the Whole approve the agenda for May 6, 2025 meeting as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Strong. Is there a seconder? Councillor Babineau. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. Approval of the minutes. Recommendation that the Committee of the Whole approve the minutes from the April 1st, 2025 meeting as presented. Is there a mover? Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Fullerton. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Motion carried unanimous. So we're on to 6.1 already, and we have Lunenburg County Senior Safety Update by David Murdoch and Lisa Bennett. So come on up here to the podium and just hit the right button when you get there and the mic will work.
Good evening. My name's David Murdoch. I'm chair of the Senior Safety Partnership Society of Lunenburg County. And I'm going to introduce Lisa shortly. But first of all, I wanted to tell you, we have a board of 16. We're fortunate to have Debbie on our board representing the town. And we also appreciate the funding you give us. Of $2,231 each year that goes towards our budget in the region of 100,000. So with no further ado, I'll introduce Lisa to give you a presentation.
Thanks for having us this evening. I guess we wanted to give you an update on what senior safety is up to. You apologize for any coughing. I'm just getting over something. We couldn't do what we do if it wasn't for the collaboration with not just municipalities, but people in the community, businesses, other organizations. It's really important for us to be able to have seniors safer in their homes longer, but not just be in their homes, that they feel safe in their homes. So to do that, thank you. We do with what we do, what we've already have shown that we do well, which is home visiting, one-on-one support, connecting older adults with families that are relevant resources in the community that make sense to them, so they choose what works for them and what doesn't, and adapting to changing needs within the community. And that has been going on quite a bit in the last 6 months or so. We have programs within the programs besides the home visiting. We do what we call the Vial of Life, which is an emergency response program for seniors who have a diagnosis or medical needs that first responders would need to know about to help with their treatment programs. We would do elder abuse awareness, scams and fraud prevention, Senior Safety Academy, which we're doing one coming up in Riverport this month, starting Thursday. We do a lot of system navigation, so it's not just knowing what systems are out there, but knowing how those systems work so that there is reasonable expectations of that. Building our partnerships and our networks so that we know what those systems are about, and advocacy through identifying gaps, so information sharing and resources. Thanks. One of our proudest achievements through the hard work of my predecessor is the Helping Tree, which you can find on our webpage. It is a list of resources in Lunenburg County that are most relevant to older adults in the community. It's not an exhaustive list. It's a living entity, so we encourage and invite people to let us know if there are changes that need to be made so that we can make them online so that everyone has access to it. So you don't have to call me for the resource. You can look at it, share it with an older adult that may be in need, whether it's South Shore Open Doors, VON, continuing care. Those numbers are accessible to everybody. Presentations, believe it or not, is one of my favorite things to do. It really gets me out in the community, reaching people that normally you may not be able to reach. It's with every presentation, we usually end up having 2 or 3 more asks. Can you come and do something here with us? Especially when it comes to the scams and fraud, that's really on the rise, unfortunately. The Senior Safety Academy is also very popular because we bring in presenters from, well, they're expert in their own fields. So we bring in a lawyer to talk about wills and powers of attorney, end of life planning. RCMP or Bridgewater Police come in and talk about scams and fraud or personal safety issues, and so on. We've also developed a seniors mental wellness toolkit. It hasn't been completely printed off yet, but it consists of PowerPoint, a brochure, a rack card, some best practices. If you go on our website, there is a link to some more learnings on senior wellness and how that connects with their general safety, their general well-being, and helps keep them less vulnerable or susceptible to scams and frauds or elder abuse. Home management book is much like the Vial of Life, but it adds to it. So it helps your helper help you in times when you can't look after your management of your own home. And it also can help with emergency preparedness. So if you're thinking about that ahead of time, it takes anxiety away. It's not just about planning for 72 hours. What if you have to evacuate? What is your plan? If you have mobility issues or medical issues considerations that you need to think about, that plan is in place and you're not trying to scramble at the last minute. WEED, which is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, happens every June 15th. We go out in the community, try to collaborate with other partners to bring out awareness and prevention of elder abuse in our communities. Last year, we were in collaboration with the YMCA youth. They helped make ribbons and pass them out and talk about, have those conversations. Can't always reach the people that we want to reach. So if we look at the intergenerational pieces, we can extend our reach and extend the awareness. Thank you. So if you're probably wondering, what have we been doing here in Lunenburg? A lot. We've done presentations at the hospital, Fisherman's Memorial. We've gone to the the farmer's market. But there's been a lot of one-on-one support work being done here, as well as strong collaboration with businesses and with the MLA's office that help with that extended reach. Often people will reach out to their MLA before they reach out to anybody else, and they are very good at giving us referrals. Yeah. So the types of referrals that I see, not just in Lunenburg, but in Lunenburg County itself. Scams and frauds, elder abuse, hoarding, unsafe housing. Just connecting to how do I stay at home? I need extra hands. I need someone to help me with cooking. I need someone to help clean or help shovel. There's all kinds of different referrals that we have that come our way. And navigating through the home repair grants is another big one that we see. How do you make a referral? So you can just give me a call at 902-543-3567 or give me an email. It's great to have a conversation because I can ask questions in the moment. And some people like to keep the referrals anonymous, and we can do that as well. Sometimes if you're calling, it may not be actually a referral to me. I might suggest that it's a better organization, might be better suited to addressing the older adults' concerns. Well, and I think, we're at the end. Any questions? Did I stay under the 10-minute? Because I tried. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? I have one quick one, I guess, just do you have a program where like if a senior, I guess, sort of call a friend if they're depressed or they
Yep.
just want to talk to someone lonely, they can call and like Big Brother, Big Sister does for other, people. Do you have that type of program?
So I don't have the program myself because I'm an army of one. But we do have access to a friendly voice, which is a free service, 7 days a week. They operate from 9 in the morning until 11 at night. And you can call 2, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. It's just a friendly voice. And they're just volunteers, but they can really help with those isolation pieces.
If you had a chance, could you send that number to staff? Maybe we'll put that in some type of newsletter down the road that we send out
Absolutely.
to our citizens, because I think that's in a community like ours, we have a lot of elderly, like widows or single people that are home. I'm sure they're lonely. I couldn't imagine, for example, like my mom is a widow, but myself and my sister live here, so she's very fortunate. But there's a lot that don't have that.
They're living alone for the first time.
Right. This is the first time she's been alone in like a long, long time, but we're right here. So I
And
couldn't
it's
imagine.
scary, it's
Yeah.
different times and maybe not connected to the same people that
Yeah.
they used to be because unfortunately, their other friends have passed on or something. So yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. We'd love to be able to share that number and information with our residents if we could. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you. And we can move on, but before we move on, if you folks would like to enjoy the rest of the evening, you don't have to stay at this exciting meeting. It's up to yourself. We always give presenters the opportunity to leave before we move on, if you'd like. Okay. Don't get up too fast. Don't look too excited. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, number 7 is just correspondence, just an update on the fund that's basically the province has done some moving around of the fund and created the new PCAP fund. So that's just for information only. And we will move on to 8, business arising from the minutes. There isn't any there, but then 8.1 is the marketing levy bylaw. So Kayla, you want to fire away?
Thank you. So tonight, the goal of this report is to ask whether council wants to move ahead with creating a marketing levy bylaw. So again, this is something that's been identified on our motion action list. It was a directive from the previous council. And I think this current council has had some time, looked at it, and in terms of the discussion we had at the April 1 committee of the whole, by keeping that on the motion action list, staff just wanted to make sure that this council wanted to move in that direction of creating one. So essentially for tonight, we're looking for 2 things: whether there is the interest in pursuing that levy and moving forward. And then if so, permission for staff to engage with local accommodation operators before bringing back the draft bylaw. So just a little bit of background here. So back in 2022, the province gave municipalities the ability to create these levies under the Municipal Government Act. So it allows us municipalities to charge up to 3% on short-term stays like hotels, inns, Airbnbs, to help fund tourism marketing. So it's quite specific on what these funds can be used for. Several other places across Nova Scotia have already implemented this bylaw, with the 3% being the pretty common levy we're seeing across the board. So as I said, if council's interested in moving forward, staff are recommending that we start engagement with operators in late summer or early fall. This gives us time to hear the input and build a bylaw that we hope works for both the town and the operators who need to use the bylaw. So we were thinking with the timeline of late summer, early fall is because summer is a busy time and we might see better participation for these very busy folks once they start to quiet down. You'll note that we've suggested a target date of April 1 to have this bylaw in effect, but if council wants to move that faster, we definitely think we could accommodate that and say, for example, have it in effect for January 1. We just thought it was really important to have that engagement component with the operators. So with that, that's my report. And if anyone has any questions, input, I'm happy to hear it.
Thank you, Kayla. I'll open up to my colleagues. Anyone have any comments at this point? Deputy Mayor?
I just wanted to wondered about the bylaws that may exist in other communities that have already got these in place, and wondered if, knowing that there are some kind of ready-made examples, if there would be possible to get something out to the operators actually sooner rather than waiting till the end of the summer, but with the understanding that we're not going to get a lot of uptake. But I think my thought, and happy to hear what others think, is that the sooner they kind of get thinking about this, and even as they work through their season, the better, and the more opportunity we'll have for feedback from them. Because I do think, I think to be operational on April 1st, we'll have to, have things set up, a few months before that. So just in the interests of getting things flowing, I'm just thinking we might get, initiate that engagement with the operators a little sooner.
Thank you. Kayla?
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, and that's definitely the intent. In terms of the bylaw itself, the wording, I don't think we're trying to reinvent the wheel. We've seen it kind of the language of the bylaw quite standardized, especially it's common in many communities, and now it's quite common in Nova Scotia. So that's not the part, like, again, as we've said, making sure. So, in our preliminary discussions of that, we thought a remittance period of twice a year. I can't quite remember. We said maybe April and October. Just making sure, does that work for operators? If it's something subjective like that, where we say twice a year, but we hear from operators, once a year would really work best for us. I think there's that wiggle room where we want to, the bylaw itself is not the challenge. It's just making sure we Lunenburgerize it to make it work for our businesses.
I actually had some discussion with one of the deputy ministers last week at the conference, and the province is actually looking for a third party to, I guess, sort of make it easier for the collections and sort of administer the bylaw. There's a lot of smaller communities that are actually creating, or they have bylaws now, and they find the hardest part is collecting. And when the problem is, the province said, and we don't have ours ready yet, so it'll be fine for us, but a lot of these smaller communities wanted to remit it like monthly, or like, every third month. And the province, anyone that they're finding that's willing to take this on, is saying either twice a year or even once a year if the community could hold off. It's much easier. So the province is taking a serious look at this. It's a lot different than, say, 10 years ago when we were really handcuffed of even being allowed to do this. Now they're really pushing it to give communities money to promote themselves. So they are working with some third parties, and when they do have a set plan and a third party or two that is willing to take this on, they said they will reach out to all the municipal units. So that was a good news sort of at the conference. They are looking at it. And I guess I sort of along the same lines, I've been out here, the deputy mayor, that I know we're not going to have the bylaw ready till probably fall. And I know we want to engage our business community, our accommodation community to be involved. But I think if we're thinking April 1st, which I think is a good date, because VRBO and all these other platforms, you have to give your information to them well in advance. So I think if this is what we're thinking, if we agree around this table, that's what our goal is, by April 1st to have a 3% levy in place. We don't have to know the rules at this point. We should let the operators know now. So when they're setting their prices for next year, it's better to set them now. And if for whatever reason it doesn't go through, they at least have them in there, because I guess once they pass their stuff onto the platform, the way it's been explained to me, it's really hard to change things after the deadline. So I would just suggest if we decide here tonight to make a recommendation back to council as submitted there for them to come back, so we're actually all agreeing to move ahead, we should let them know ASAP that that's what we're thinking anyways. And we can do that through the Board of Trade and that. So Councillor Strong?
I'm totally unfamiliar with this marketing bylaw, although I've read the materials. And I'm getting a little confused. So the province collects the money. We collect the money. So he would be facilitating the collection.
So what they're working on right now, because some municipalities don't have the ability, or they're struggling to collect the money, and there's a programs you can use in that, and other municipalities already have, or other agencies already have these programs set up. For example, HRM's been doing it for years, and HRM is big enough that they might be able to take our levy under them. I'm just using them as hypothetical. They could maybe be able to take us under their umbrella, collect the money for us, and distribute it to the community that's collected. Now, they obviously would collect a fee, and I have no idea what, would it be an administration fee? But no matter who does it, we'd have to take something into account for that, but that's what they're talking about.
As I understood it, what the real issue was with the big platforms like Airbnb and VBRO, because the smaller operators, their funds go through them, so they have to go through them to have it added. And so that's what the province has found has been a complicating factor. It's not just a local inn submitting directly. They're having to deal with this big entity. So they're trying to make that easier and find an avenue to do that with. And there was talk of potentially using some kind of third party to facilitate that, but I don't really know what that looks like yet. But we would be beholden to, follow suit, I guess, right, with whatever was to happen there. But I did have another follow-up question too. Yeah, thanks, through the chair. Just with respect to setting this up, it was ages ago when I had looked at this before, and the world was different. It wasn't MGA authorized, but it was still a complication for our staff, through finance. Is that an issue at all that has to be considered, or is it sort of just a kind of a line item that we add to the budget as a revenue stream, or?
Through the chair. So as we see this still, again, as we said, the meat and the language of these bylaws we think are pretty prepared. So we just need to finesse it a little bit to make sure it works for not only our operators, but also our staff. So this is a very collaborative approach that we've been working with finance and with community development to make sure that, on the back end, we're making sure it works. Now I was speaking because the town of Bridgewater, our neighbors, we have good collaboration and resource sharing with them. They implemented their bylaw April 1. Oh, that's fine, don't worry about it. They implemented their bylaw this past April 1. And my understanding in discussions with them is they were able to take apart. So if it does become, we need, I think what Mayor Myra was alluding to as well, internally, some of that administration cost could be covered with this bylaw. So if that requires an extra administrative cost, but we're very cognizant to work with finance to establish something. Of note as well, which we didn't have a few years ago, is this short-term rental registry with the province. So it's a little bit easier, or in theory, it's supposed to be easier to keep track of these short-term rentals and be able to directly communicate with them. So the onus of building that registry isn't on the town, and operationally we'll have that information, and we'll be able to develop a pretty standardized template. If it's twice a year, we send it out and say, hey, it's that time of year to remit. And very much like paying a property tax bill, or in our preliminary discussions with finance, we are being cognizant that the divvying up of the administrative back end is being, done in a way that makes sense for all of us.
Anything else? Councillor Strong?
Again, through the chair, how does money get spent? Is it just the town of Lunenburg that would be spending it on tourism, or? Okay.
each individual community. The region was looking at putting one together, and they were supposedly one of my first mayor's meetings back in 23. They were supposedly really close, but some communities have either backed off or they haven't been able to agree, quite honestly, what they were going to do. The original idea at that point was each community was going to say, take a portion back for themselves and give a portion to Social Tourism Association was what it was talked about, because that's the entity that the province has sort of mandated to promote Southwest Nova Scotia. But it's really up to each community to take and spend and promote the community. But it's limited to what you can spend it on. Like you can't say put a new sidewalk on Montague Street, right? So it has to be strictly tourism related. And originally they've opened it a bit now, they broadened it, but originally it was for the shoulder seasons. They even had that in when they first announced it, but because depending on where you live, you might have a different shoulder season, right? So.
And through the chair, just further to that, it ultimately comes down to council's decision. So preliminary in this report to, we do have our cultural tourism working group. So that'll be a further discussion as we dig into it to say, okay, we've done this for a year. We have this pot of money. It ultimately comes down to council within the defined MGA parameters. But there's also council has the ability to give it to a tourism group. So, vetting out that plan with council's decision. So, once we've collected that money, it might be, oh, the cultural tourism working group has all these recommendations. Perhaps that's a proposal for council to consider, but ultimately comes down to council.
And then lastly, through the chair, is the Cultural Tourism Working Group aware of this?
My understanding is yes. So, yes.
Yeah, my hope would be once the bylaw gets in place and we start seeing what kind of, because we really don't know, because since we looked at this a while ago even, we've lost a number of rooms here in Lunenburg, right? With a couple of places turned over to like other type of housing or whatever. So my hope is that once we have some idea what we'll be able to collect, that maybe we can actually go back to the people that are actually collecting those funds, either by email, have a meeting, couple meetings here and ask them what they feel we should be like, maybe have a top 5 list and what do you think the priorities are? At least give them some input because it's really, they've collected the money for us. So I'd like to collaborate the community when we do spend any of the money, quite honestly. Anything else? Councilor Babineau.
Thank you. Through the chair, I definitely am interested just to your sort of initial question in us continuing to work on this bylaw. My one, I guess, concern would be, I mean, I think it would be a good idea to notify the operators now, or as soon as council sort of makes a motion on it. But in terms of getting meaningful engagement with the accommodations operators, we are now kind of on the upward slope into their busy season. So I am wondering if maybe early fall might be a better time to sort of have that actual like deep dive engagement with them as to what the specifics of this look like.
There is a recommendation in front of us from what I'm hearing around the table. We all think it's a great idea to at least get to the next level. So is someone prepared to move that recommendation? Councilor Strong, would you like to read it?
Including conducted targeted engagement with local accommodation operators and bring forward a draft bylaw for council's consideration at a future meeting.
It's been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councilor Fullerton. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Thank you very much. Now, 8.2, public statements and policy amendments. Kayla, you're up again.
All right, thanks again. So the purpose of this report is to walk through a few recommended changes to the public statements policy and ask whether council is comfortable moving forward with these amendments. So this policy, the public statements policy, was adopted in August of last year to guide how we handle proclamations, letters of support, flag raisings at town facilities. Since then, most of the requests that we see are flag related. Right now, even though something like, the Grand Council Mi'kmaq flag and the pride flag. These are things that council historically has approved each year. So rather than bringing this back every single year to approve it and potentially like missing a deadline, we're just looking to streamline that process a little bit. So we've added Appendix A, which are flags that council has previously approved in the past. So rather than bringing them back every single year under this policy, we just say we're always going to fly these ones, recognizing council can add and take away. We've also taken this opportunity while we were doing kind of this housekeeping amendment to add language about our flagpole protocols at the UNESCO monument. So for example, our practice is that the Mi'kmaq Grand Council flag is flown permanently there now. And we use that 5th flagpole as our special events flagpole for other flag raisings. So again, this is our practice, but it's not captured anywhere in policy. So we just took that as an opportunity to include that. So if anyone has additions, input, amendments, we're happy to discuss it here.
Thank you very much. We'll open it to the floor. Anybody? Councillor Strong.
My understanding is that one of the flagpoles is actually Mi'kmaq. Okay, so that it's not even policy, it's a designated.
The 4 that are actual permanent are the Canadian flag, the Nova Scotia flag, the town of Lunenburg flag, and the Mi'kmaq Grand Council flag. And then there's a new pole that was put up early this year or late last. That is the one that rotates for special months and days and events. Anybody else have any questions? Councillor Greek.
Through the chair, is there a procedure for adding flag raisings to the approved annual list? And is there any, I guess, any standards for which one would be removed?
Through the chair. So in terms of adding, so we still have within this policy that already existed for more one-off flag raising. So anything that's not in Appendix D or A, there's not that many appendix. It would still be a request for council. So we would put it on typically like a letter of support, a proclamation. So a good example is a couple of years ago, like the VON flag that we raise. If council felt that they wanted to add that, because they said, you know, we see this every year and we want to add this and make it an annual thing, by a motion of council, we could definitely add that and wouldn't bring that back to you folks anymore. It would just be an automatic. But still having that mechanism in place for maybe there's a very one-off, I don't want to say sports, but there could be some like very one-off event that you wanted to raise the flag and that would go through and it wouldn't necessarily get baked into our policy forever. And then in terms of removing it, it is a policy of council. So if council wanted to have that discussion through a notice of motion or through just bringing it up a committee of the whole, that would be up for you as a council to discuss amending your policy.
So in the middle of June, we can hang the maple leaf flag for a day, right? When they come. I'll have to write a request to council. Yeah. Deputy Mayor.
Kind of along the lines of what Councillor Greek was asking, I too kind of wondered about almost just a backstop or a safeguard for the fact that these are going to be done annually. Is there some sort of check on that this is still desirable by not just us, but by the group that we're, you know, looking to be to celebrate or to help promote? Sometimes a flag is changed or a day. I noticed one of them was generally on this day or whatever. So I guess would it be wise to, you know, put some kind of wording in the policy to sort of ensure that there's a check-in with the person, so it wouldn't have to come to anybody to be approved. It's assumed it will be done, but it's a part of council or the staff's check to, you know, make contact with the community organization or whatever to ensure that that is still what would be desired.
Yeah, through the chair. Absolutely, we could add some wording just to make that very clear. And because it's a quiet, not meeting tonight, maybe I'll just put our brand new communications officer on the spot. We did have a meeting today and we were talking about these policy amendments, and that's exactly what Jamie brought up, to make sure to continuously have that connection with those groups. So making sure that we're still checking in to say, we're doing this flag raising, does this work for you? And you know, do you want it to be more of the formal ceremony with the speeches and the coming, or if that doesn't work for your group, do you simply want us to raise the flag and promote it on our various channels? So definitely something that Jamie highlighted today in discussing it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Also, I wondered about a couple more things. If they're making one small edit that I wondered about making just from a clarity perspective was on page 2, and it says requests may not be contrary to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms or the Nova Scotia Human Rights Act. I was thinking any request deemed contrary to any of those would simply not be considered, or something. It almost seems like I don't know, just I was worried about that wording. That was just a very minor thing. Then it also, we talk about they'd be restricted to 3 minutes if they would be making a presentation, you know, sort of accompanying their request for, and I just thought typically a presentation at a committee or a council, there's longer than that. And I'm wondering if there was a reason we were being particularly restrictive in that. And that's under 5. Requesters must indicate it whether they wish to appear before council to present the request. No persons will address council for more than 3 minutes, which seemed a little restrictive. Considering, you know, a normal presentation is typically, I think, 10 or something.
Yeah, definitely. I think that might have just been an oversight in terms of the consistency of our public input in the 3 minutes and then the presentations, but I completely agree. If council is comfortable with that, having the same 10 minutes that we would give to anyone making a presentation is good consistency throughout the rest of our policies.
They usually haven't asked, or typically, but just in case there's something very special they want to highlight. I wondered if there was also an oversight, or if it's somewhere else amongst our policies about putting flags at half-mast. So there was a very well-defined criteria as to when flags are to be put at half-mast, when it's, you know, a death of someone of importance, or a member of staff, or a member of council, or someone that has particular ties to the community or strong ties to the community. I don't remember precisely what those were, but I didn't see any mention of that in this policy, and I'm wondering if that may have gotten lost somehow in amongst our, you know, in the changes of policies that are being made, or if it's maybe still contained elsewhere.
Yeah, so through the chair, it is a little bit more vague. So we have included it as section 6 in the policy. And one of the recommendations were actually made to remove is requests related to half-masting may also be made to council through the regular process for public statements, recognizing that in the time we've put the onus kind of on the CAO to authorize those half-masting, because if someone prominent has died in our community, that might not align with our council agenda. We'd want to show that respect and get that flag at half-mast. Internally, we're also working on a document to just keep track of things that we would typically, like, so Remembrance Day, Battle of the Atlantic, so these things that we would typically, whether council would like to see those regular half-mastings, the annual ones, included in Appendix A, we could definitely alter that and include it, but we did want to have that a little bit more flexibility for the CAO to possibly make that call, just to hoist the flag at half-mast as soon as possible, rather than waiting for a council meeting if needed.
Okay, through the chair. Yeah, I guess, and I wasn't suggesting it should ever, and it had never ever been through council motion. It was always a policy, but the criteria, I guess, was defined somewhat so people would understand. And actually, there was also a provision in that previous policy that it would be publicized why the flag was at half mast. So, you know, if it in honor of, you know, so-and-so would be indicated, so the community would understand when they see our flags at half mast that there's some significance to that and what that is. So if it's not anywhere else and, you know, like a staff policy or something, then I do think we should spell it out somewhere and have some very basic criteria stated.
Councillor Strong?
Marking might not to say a go, but I'm trying to give the CAO discretion, so may authorize is perfect. And I think that it just says when appropriate, and have a definition of what appropriate is somewhere. But just to say that the CAO may authorize gives him that discretion or her that discretion to do it.
Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Strong.
Yeah, okay, this is the constitutional lawyer coming out with me. And that is, I did pick up on Rachel's concern about the contrary to the charter or human rights. I think that really does need to be worked on in a satisfactory way, because it just is. I'd be happy to help you too, but it is too clunky. That's all.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, so do we want to provide some further amendments and edits and come back to the table? That's one of the options. Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, I do want to move this along, but I have a couple of more notes that it just takes me a while to get through my own notes to myself. At page 5, paragraph 5, I have to see what it was. I had noted, specifically, it doesn't mention, it mentions media coverage as the responsibility of the organization or a person requesting the proclamation. Or it says all other advertising. It's very limited as to what we do, website and social media channels, when there may be opportunities for us to do other things like included in our newsletter or something like that. So rather than just sort of restrict it to that, but clearly if there is other paid advertising that the organization wants to undertake, then that would be their responsibility. I think that's probably what the intent was. So I just wouldn't want to sort of limit Jamie's creativity to get free publicity and to help promote, but also to make it clear that we're not, by making a proclamation, we're not assuming financial responsibility for further promoting the event or the occasion. And there was one other thing, having been requested or having received many requests myself for letters of support in the past, the provision in this bylaw policy, and I don't know where it's noted, but maybe I just suggested that I wonder if there should be some sort of provision or not to be encouraged, but sort of out for those very occasional but realistic occasions when a letter of support is requested and there isn't the time. So there's very strict timelines given. We all live in a world where things aren't perfect, and many of our organizations are volunteer run and volunteer led, and they may our support of a particular funding initiative may be or their success may be contingent on a letter of support from the town. And I would hate to simply turn them away because they haven't met a 30-day or a 14-day window to have made that request of us. So I would certainly be comfortable with putting some criteria in place with notice to council or something that the mayor and CAO be authorized to make a decision to go ahead and provide a letter of support under special circumstances. If people understand what my goal is with that.
That actually makes perfect sense because as letters of support go, I think since I've been in this chair, I've probably signed 3 or 4 for nonprofit local organizations that were down to the crunch on funding deadlines, and for whatever reason came to me at one of the last minutes because they need a letter of support from the community. We're not giving them any like funding promises or anything. We're just saying, yeah, we support that organization, whatever. And I think I've signed more than one in 20 months, right? And none of them have came to this table because the way I understood it, it's been letters that we've given in the past for those said organizations when this stuff comes up. So I do agree with we should make that a little less regulatory, because I think we are going to run into that always, because a lot of these organizations might have 1-page staff if they have any. And so when it comes to grant applications and grant writing, a lot of times it's right down to the wire, and some things get missed. And to be quite honest, most of the time they'll contact you, and they'll even, because they have already read the grant, so they'll know exactly what the letter should sort of look like and say, could you write this? Or and like I said, I've done it multiple times in 20 months. So, you know, if we're going to have it written like this, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And if you want to really upset a nonprofit organization, that'd be a way to do it, because we're not really giving them anything but a signature, to be quite honest, right? So I think that we should look at making that a lot less restrictive, or putting some kind of special thing in there that when leave it, change some things around, but definitely put in there that in the mayor with discussion of maybe the deputy mayor, if you want 2 people, and the CAO, if they get a last minute request and they feel it's no harm, no foul, just get it off to them ASAP. So is everybody okay for those reasons? Okay. Anything else? Deputy Mayor?
No, I just happy to move the recommendation, since I've been holding it up for so long, that the committee of the whole recommend that council approve the amendments to the public statements policy as presented and with the amendments suggested, and that the service notice of council's intent to amend the policy.
Been moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Strong. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carried unanimous. Number 9, there's no new business. Number 10, so we'll start to the right this time. Councillor Strong, do you have anything under number 10? Okay, Councillor Daphne, Deputy Mayor.
I would like to give a fuller report to council, but I'm not prepared to tonight about our attendance at the spring conference, because there was lots of great information there. And just the town has been promoting the fact that it's Emergency Preparedness Week, I think. So that's an important initiative to undertake for our public.
Councillor Babineau, Councillor Greek, Councillor Fullerton.
I also have some notes that I've made from our conference attendance last week that I would like to share with the rest of council and people at the meeting, but I don't have anything ready yet either. So I'll defer to a later date.
No problem. And I sent mine off to all of you here the other night. Amazing what double overtime does when you're trying to stay up. I put all my notes together and, put it and send it out to you. So I can make that part of the package of this correspondence if we want at the next meeting as well. So the public knows that it was, we were well represented as a community at that conference, and it was a well-attended conference, and there was a lot of initiatives that were raised at this conference that I don't know about my colleagues that were with me, but some newer initiatives that I wasn't totally aware of. And even some of the discussions, like I said, that you have when you're networking, you hear things other communities are doing, and that's really knowledgeable for the town to be at those functions. So nothing else. That's it for the regular meeting. A motion to move into closed session. By Councilor Strong, seconded by Councilor Fullerton. Thank you.